Boy, oh boy, do I have some big breaking news for you. So I'm sitting there prepping for the show tomorrow, and news breaks. Mayor Pete has officially dropped out of the 2020 Democratic primary. Um, is it surprising? Yeah, a little bit. A little bit, because he's doing much better in the elections so far compared to Amy Klobuchar, compared to Elizabeth Warren. You get the sense that he is narcissistic enough to think that he still has some kind of a path. In fact, he was talking to the media recently, his campaign was within this week, and was talking about how they're going to attempt to basically use delegate math tricks to find a path to the nomination in a similar way that they kind of gamed the election in Iowa. The app and all the shadiness aside, Bernie Sanders won by 6,000 votes, and Pete was able to keep it relatively close in the state delegate elects because of, basically exploiting the way the election works and finding the exact areas where he needs to go to get the most bang for his buck when it comes to voting. So I'm a little bit surprised that he dropped out, but we're going to get into ultimately why I think he did and what really happened. So my guess is, and again, this is just my opinion, there's nothing to back it up yet. I think in time I'll be proven right about this, and we'll know soon enough. But my guess is that he's going to endorse somebody. Who's he going to endorse? I don't know that part yet. But he's going to endorse somebody, and it will be tactical, and he was almost certainly offered something behind the scenes, some kind of cabinet position in a potential administration, or maybe even a VP pick, although that one might be a little bit of a stretch, but he was definitely offered something behind the scenes in order for him to drop out and endorse. And we don't know yet who that is, but we will see very soon. Now, how will this play out? How will this impact Bernie Sanders? How will this impact the rest of the race? It's really a tough one to judge. So, at first I thought, well, this might actually help Bernie. It might help Bernie because for a very long time, the poll showed that, believe it or not, Mayor Pete voters, their second choice was Bernie Sanders. I know that seems ideologically to make no sense, but voters aren't exactly extremely ideological. They don't know labels. And, half the time Mayor Pete talks about bringing in a new kind of politics and ushering in a new era and not going back to the old way of doing things. And if there's anybody who actually does that, it's Bernie Sanders. But of course, Mayor Pete, the other half the time, would just do centrist neoliberal talking points and basically say, no, we're going to go back to the status quo and keep everything running as it is. So according to some polls, Bernie Sanders is the second choice of Mayor Pete supporters. In other polls, though, in fact, the most recent poll, I just saw this now. This is from Ryan Struck, who I believe is a CNN reporter. Now, CNN is not, the best outlet, and they've been wrong 1,000 times. And they've, done flat-out propaganda at times. But according to the most recent Quinnipiac poll, Klobuchar, 26%, that's Mayor Pete voters' second choice. Warren, 26%. Biden, 19%. Bernie, 11%. Bloomberg, 9%. Don't know, 2%. So for a long time, Bernie was the second favorite. Now, apparently, according to the most recent poll, it's Klobuchar and Warren. I don't know. That's interesting. But we'll see who he ends up endorsing, because that will tell us a little bit about what kind of a backroom deal was made. And I'm very certain that there was a backroom deal made, because I don't think he would have done this unless there was some sort of assurance behind the scenes. So, could it help Bernie Sanders? Well, if the old polls are correct, then yeah, it could help Bernie Sanders because a lot of that support could go to him. Can it hurt Bernie Sanders? I mean, theoretically, if Pete drops out and endorses Biden and his voters actually listen, or a strong number of his voters actually listen, theoretically that could hurt Bernie Sanders. But if this polling is correct, it doesn't necessarily hurt Bernie, because adding, votes to Amy Klobuchar and Elizabeth Warren, I don't know. That's largely going to do Dickie McGee's acts. I mean, it might help in the sense that it could further try to take away Massachusetts from him and Minnesota from him. But, you know, there was a decent chance of that anyway without this move happening. He was down in, or tied in the recent polls in Massachusetts, down in the polls in Minnesota. So, I mean, I guess this could be interpreted as another way for them to try to take away Minnesota and Massachusetts from Bernie. But it could also make it potentially that Elizabeth Warren and Biden get above that 15% threshold in California, which means they get some delegates, which is another attempt to try to keep him under a majority and make it so he only has a plurality. Honestly, anybody who tells you they know exactly how this is going to unfold with Pete dropping out is kind of clueless. Nobody really knows exactly what's going to happen, exactly how it's going to play out. I can't say definitively it's going to help Bernie. I can't say definitively it's going to hurt Bernie. My initial reaction was it's probably going to help him because the poll showed Bernie was Pete's voter's second favorite choice. But with the new polls here, that's not necessarily the case anymore, which is not really all that surprising. But listen, bottom line is, if you're a Bernie Sanders supporter, no matter what, the answer is the same. Bernie's been working really hard in California to have a big win in California and really run up that delegate count. Also in Texas, he's been working really hard in Texas to try to get a big win in Texas to run up that delegate count. With Biden doing well in South Carolina, that bodes well for him in the South, in some of the southern states, but not necessarily delegate-rich areas, and Bernie still has a chance in some of those states. So the question is, on Super Tuesday, how much can Bernie rack up? And we'll know on either Tuesday night or Wednesday morning whether or not it is very likely that it's going to be a Bernie plurality going into the DNC in Milwaukee, or whether or not it's going to be a Bernie majority. We'll have a much clearer picture after Tuesday. But my guess is that with Mayor Pete dropping out, it's certainly a move to try to blunt his momentum and stop him from getting that majority. We just need the details in the middle to be filled in. Exactly who did he cut a deal with? What are the terms of the deal? Even if Pete comes out and says, hey, you know, I'm dropping out and endorsing Biden because he represents my vision better, whatever it may be, will his voters even listen? Because in every poll, or not every poll, in a lot of polls, Biden was not high on the list of Mayor Pete's second choice. In the new poll, he's at 19%, but Klobuchar and Warren eclipse him. So will they even listen if Mayor Pete says that? I don't know. I really have no idea. But Mayor Pete is officially out of the race. I like how Trump's campaign responded by saying apparently the voters were not interested in smug condescension. I don't know if those were the exact words, but it was something along those lines. Apparently the voters weren't interested in smug condescension, or they may have phrased it in a different way, but either way, it was something to that effect. Mayor Pete started out by pretending to be in favor of Medicare for All, pretending to be in that left-wing lane, actually making arguments for left-wing positions. And then as soon as he realized that that lane was kind of closed off by a very popular figure who amassed a movement, Bernie Sanders, he immediately pivoted and immediately, you know, became a standard, basic neoliberal centrist, while at the same time pretending like he was some sort of revolutionary character and like, I'm going to change politics and we need a new era in Washington, D.C. A new era by bringing in the exact same politics of the 1990s. So, you know, for that reason, many people on the left despised him. For all the messing around that happened in Iowa, where we know the deal with the app, how apparently the app that they used to count the votes was in part funded by Mayor Pete's team, and then there's a lot of fishy characters in the Iowa Democratic Party who are really close with Mayor Pete and tweeting about how much they loved him, and really, really sketchy stuff. So he quickly became one of the least favorite candidates among the left for good reason. And the fact that he had no principles and he really backed off all the things he originally pretended to support, it really exposed him for who he really is. He's totally vapid, and unfortunately I can guarantee you that we're going to see more of him in the future. I'd bet a lot of money that he's going to run again. And as I talk to you now, Donald Trump just tweeted, Pete Buttigieg is out. All of his Super Tuesday votes will go to sleepy Joe Biden. Great timing. This is the real beginning of the Dems taking Bernie out of play. No nomination. Again. Well, we'll see about that, big guy, because again, it is not clear that that is how Pete dropping out will unfold. It could have really no substantive effect on the race. It could help Bernie. It could hurt Bernie. There's a lot of contradictory evidence out there. We just need to make sure, if you're a Bernie supporter, stay on the grind and do everything you possibly can, because it's either us with a plurality or a majority, and either way, we're going to fight until the end to make sure we get that nomination. Because if it's a plurality, Bernie has already indicated, oh, you're crazy if you think I'm going to bow out if I have the most votes. So he will fight if it's a plurality. And again, right now the race is, will it be Bernie plurality or majority? So we got to do our best to get him to that majority, but all the things happening behind the scenes are an attempt to blunt that momentum so he doesn't get a majority. But it's possible that the establishment here miscalculated. So it's yet to be seen how this impacts the race, but we will see very soon because, right now as I'm recording this, it's Sunday night, and Super Tuesday is Tuesday, so it's coming up very quickly, and I'm sorry, but it can't get here soon enough. I'm already nervous. I'm already nervous, and we got a little while to go, a day before Tuesday, but let's go. Let's go. Let's get it here, and I need more information. I need more vote totals, because I've been on edge this entire election.